Don't get me wrong, I'm not titling this video because I want Ford to fail and I'm hoping Tesla crushes all their competitors. It's genuinely because I believe the future involves having lots of options. We're gonna need lots of different brands and techniques and approaches to electric vehicles out there, and it's kind of sad to see that Ford's approach isn't really working out for them anymore. At least on paper, it made a lot of sense. That's why when the F-150 Lightning first got announced and unveiled and people started driving them around, there was a lot of logic to the design concept. It was like, Ford F-150's been the best-selling truck for decades, so just make an electric version of it. It doesn't have to be that different. Tesla almost went with the polar opposite approach of like, let's make a radically different pickup truck that's nothing like anything else on the road. And I don't think like one is the only way forward. Like there are some people out there that probably want an all-electric truck but don't want to draw a lot of attention to themselves. And the F-150 Lightning was like the perfect like sleeper EV. Nobody would know you were driving an electric truck in the first place, but with the Tesla Cybertruck, it's just like, what are you doing? Who's that guy? Why did you buy it? Why does it look like that? It sparks so many questions, whereas the Lightning is more of the, let's just blend in with the crowd. And I think the market kind of needs both of these because there's not one type of truck buyer out there. There's lots of different types of pickup truck owners. So I was very sad to see that Ford has officially stopped producing the F-150 Lightning and doesn't plan on restarting production until next year. And knowing how Ford has like changed plans in the past, I wouldn't be surprised if they delay the production even further, because listening into their earnings report and their shareholder deck, it's clear that their EV business is just nowhere near profitable. Ford still makes a lot of money from their gas trucks and gas SUVs, but the EV business, even after several years of producing and delivering the Lightning, is just not getting anywhere near where it needs to be in order for it to be a sustainable business and one that Ford is actually incentivized to grow. And that's why we're seeing some pretty nutty numbers comparing the Cybertruck to the F-150 Lightning, where, you know, the F-150 Lightning is clearly substantially cheaper than the Cybertruck, not just in the used market, but even the new vehicles are substantially cheaper than the Cybertruck. And yet in Q3, where Tesla was only selling Foundation Series Cybertrucks, meaning they were all six figures, they were at the bare minimum 100 grand, some of them were Cyber Beasts at like 120 grand, and yet Tesla delivered over twice as many Cybertrucks as Ford delivered F-150 Lightnings, which falls grossly short of their initial targets. I remember watching the unveil, watch Ford talk about how proud they were of the Lightning and how they were gonna continue to grow production of the Lightning year over year and just make it better and better and improve on the specs and deliver as many as possible. And sadly, it's just come a long way from that now, where they're like, you know what, we're not pausing production because we're having issues with a certain part. They're not pausing production for upgrades or anything like that. They're purely pausing it simply because there's not enough people buying the Lightnings. And Ford still has to go through the dealer network, which means they're a lot more delayed based on what customer demand is versus production, because all of the dealerships out there are likely stuffed full with unsold F-150 Lightnings, and they were probably hearing from the dealerships that are like, we don't need any more of these things because we can't sell the ones we have. Which is a real shame, because I think there's a lot of people out there that love their F-150 Lightnings, and I wonder if this is partly a marketing problem, because I know a lot of F-150 buyers that aren't necessarily towing cross-country and doing long-distance driving. They just want a truck, and they could easily charge it from home and save a ton of money on fuel. And the gas F-150s aren't that much cheaper anyway in the first place, so I know the F-150 is one of the best-selling vehicles in the country, and I genuinely think the Lightning should be selling better, you know? Like, I get that interest rates are higher, but this thing was first in line to get new supercharger access, and I think there was likely a lot of negative press surrounding the F-150 Lightning when it first came out because of terrible infrastructure stories like Electrify America, leaving a bunch of people stranded and having long wait times on the F-150s. And that's something I hope Ford takes a look at when they do try to restart F-150 Lightning production next year, is how can we make this product better? I think for one, it's obvious Ford has said for a while now they're going to do this. Switch to a native NACS port. That way you don't have to fumble around with a supercharger adapter. I think you could either move it to the passenger side front or the driver's side rear so that it occupies only one stall at superchargers, and also you could improve on the charging speed pretty substantially. The F-150 Lightning is actually the slowest charging electric truck on the market, peaking at 150 kilowatts. Now, they did play it somewhat safe. I know their battery pack could easily handle more than that, but it basically just plugs in, holds it at 150 kilowatts deep into the pack all the way up to like 70-80%, so it's a pretty level charging curve. But when you have like 100 or 130 kilowatt hour battery pack, 150 kilowatts is just not all that much, especially when the vehicle's as inefficient as the Lightning is, averaging like 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour. 150 kilowatts just doesn't cut it for a lot of people, and Rivian is easily able to achieve over 200 kilowatts. Cybertruck has already proven to charge over 300 kilowatts, and the Silverado EV can do that. The Hummer EV, all of them can pull over 300 kilowatts, so the F-150 Lightning is definitely due for some upgrades, I think, both in the range department and the charging department. And I think what Ford is experiencing is what happens if you don't continuously improve and update your product over time. You'll find very, very quickly there's little reasons for people to buy it new versus used. I was actually looking at the used F-150 Lightning market this morning and realizing that, hey, if you're fed up with gas and you're worried about head gaskets and transmissions and you just want an all-electric pickup truck, but you don't have Cybertruck money, you don't have Silverado EV money or Rivian money, you know, those are all cool electric trucks, but they're all pretty much in the $70,000 plus range. But on the used market, whether it's on Marketplace or Cars and Bids or CarMax, wherever, you can find F-150 Lightnings actually in the like low $40,000 range, which is pretty much untouchable for the rest of the electric pickup truck space. So no, it's not going to be the fanciest interior, nor is it like an exciting startup that has some kind of new energy, new vibe with state-of-the-art software. But hey, a lot of people want CarPlay on their Teslas. F-150 Lightnings have CarPlay. May not have the greatest like self-driving system out there. Not all of them have Blue Cruise. Some of them do, but the cheap ones usually don't. And those cheaper ones do have pretty weak range, like a little bit over 200 miles. But still, I don't think the F-150 gas or electric was ever really meant to be the ultimate road trip machine. It was mainly for, you know, getting work done on the weekends and driving stuff around town and having plenty of space for your kids in the back and your bikes and your Home Depot projects in the bed. You know, it's not a very exciting truck, but for the money, I think used is definitely the way I would go if I was in the market. Just knowing that I get access to the supercharger network, I probably will have some kind of CarPlay, and I get a ton of storage space in the frunk. The F-150 Lightning still the industry leader with frunk space. Yeah, it's not really the kind of style or size I would want for a pickup truck. I'm more of a mini truck guy, but I am biased. I work for Tello, so you have to take all of my recommendations with a grain of salt, but I can understand cost savings coming first for a lot of potential buyers out there. If you just want an all-electric truck, the used models are pretty dang good, but if Ford wants me to start considering buying a new model, it's going to need substantially more range and I think way better charging. It doesn't necessarily need to be in a higher voltage architecture, but as long as you have a way to split the pack voltage so that you can still achieve well over 200 kilowatts at Tesla superchargers, because they're kind of the DC fast charging standard now. Everybody's going to need access to them if they want their EV to sell. That's why Tesla's making sure they have NACs and good charging speeds, and Aptera is doing the same thing as well. So I think the Lightning definitely needs a little bit more love from Ford, but I understand that the goal at the end of the day is to make it still look and feel very much like an F-150. I've driven a Lightning. It felt very familiar to the gas F-150s I've driven in the past. Not particularly exciting. If you blink, you'll probably miss that it's electric, but I think that's an important option to have on the market. And the reason it's not selling, I don't think is purely because the truck is a bad product. It's really not. I think it comes down to marketing and Ford probably not making a profit off of them, therefore not being incentivized to push a lot of sales of them, because the more they sell, the less money they make on the EV business. So definitely might need some simplicity on the manufacturing side in some regard. Rivian did, you know, their big refresh earlier this year and took out a lot of extra wiring and components. I think Ford should probably scale back on the, you know, platinum variants. The idea that there's people willing to pay $90,000 for these kinds of electric trucks, I just don't think the market's really there. If you're going more traditional and you're going more familiar, that demographic is going to want it to be cheaper. So I hope Ford can double down on the more affordable variants and try to find some good margins in there. But Jim Farley has also talked a lot about making smaller electric trucks, which gets us really excited at Tello. Even if it's a little bit of competition, we still just think that the industry as a whole definitely needs more efficient transportation, and we definitely want to see more options out there. And I think maybe an all-electric Maverick or Ranger would be really interesting. But what do you guys think Ford should do for their all-electric vehicle business? Should they go smaller and more efficient, or should they have bigger and bigger battery packs like GM does so that they could have, you know, well over 400 or 500 mile range F-150 Lightnings? I've seen people asking for both, so feel free to drop your thoughts down in the comments below. And thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. Have an excellent rest of your day.